G'day, friends, fans. Welcome to Dave Talk Stuff. Now, the awful truth about the awfuls. First off, affluent, white, female urban liberals labeled themselves. They formed in Colorado to flip the state blue and keep it blue through government programs and government jobs to make sure that women would always vote for the establishment. Right? But the awful truth about most liberal women is they are unhinged. And lo and behold, for most of you out there, this is not new information. But the prestigious University of... I can't seem to get a decent screen share today. Hold on. What's happened? Let's just try to... Okay, I could start again or... No, there we go. You know what? I'm not going to start again. I'll just leave it. I'm sorry. Normally I would re-record these mistakes, but I want you to know this is not AI, right? This is real, right? That liberals have actually engaged in a mental health study of 86,000 people starting since 12th grade, right? And the more people lead to the right, the more mentally healthy they are. Now, let's not go into the details about the rest. Let's just focus on the major study, shall we? Right, the main study, the information, right? Because it wasn't just Colombia. This was actually a worldwide study. Liberal women have a mental health crisis. They are the unhappiest and most mentally ill demographic in America, right? You shouldn't be surprised, but those who identify liberal are less happy than their conservative counterparts, even when liberal women are earning more. There are many factors, of course, right? But the main article takeaway is that liberals are less likely to prioritize activities that bring them personal fulfillment, such as faith, community, marriage, family. Only 37% of liberals are married, compared to 56% of conservatives. Marriage has long been associated with mental health, and marriage has also brought about happiness and fulfillment. And those who are married tend to live longer, particularly amongst women. This is why liberal women desperately get married, right? As they get older, they feel their usefulness, they feel their biological clock winding down, because your body, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? You think that just applies to your wiener? Come on, man. You know it applies to women too. But as we plunge into this study, there's the Pew Research, there's Columbia, there is worldwide studies that show that right-wing men are happier and more successful, right? Men fly solo. They succeed solo. But they do more when they have a wife to come home to. But if she is cancer, yes, then men tend to fail. This is why so many successful men are no longer successful. They are undermined, criticized, and ostracized by women who are increasingly hostile because they are envious or greedy, pretty much jealous of your success. They envy what you have. They want to take what you have, right? They want to wait for you at the finish line rather than help you rise. Now, 3 main contributing factors to women's mental health. Conservative women, happier. Motivation, right? Right? Conservative women are more motivated than liberal women for personal fulfillment. And when it comes to mental health conditions and sex life and family life and just anything really outside of politics, liberal women ever increasingly, right, as they get older, decrease in their happiness index, right? Their mental health, right, goes from a steady decline throughout their. So the older they get, the longer you're a liberal, the unhappier, more mentally unstable you become. I don't think we needed a study to tell us this. I think observation and common sense would have pointed this out. So why, if the majority of them have mental health issues, don't they just... Well, that's where they cling to each other, right? This is where they form the lesbian collectives. That's where they throw themselves in. They're unhappy, so they fall for the cliche, oh, just throw yourself into your work. Well, they don't have real work, right? So they're school teachers by day, lesbian activists by night. They don't have anything. They go home to their cats and they make TikTok videos going, he said to me, oh, take care of my cat. So I did a heron melon and I petted my kitty and said, look, I'm happy. And then drink yourself to death, Unfortunately, good old heron melon did not. I'm probably pronouncing it right. There are a number of feminists, right? But you notice a lot of these feminists, they don't tell you they're married, do they? They don't tell you they have kids. See, a lot of your leading feminists, why they appear to be so mentally stable is they're married. It's a grift. They're not really liberals, right? It's a grift, right? They don't believe what the shit they peddle. They don't live the lifestyles they advocate. Marx never lived the lifestyle he advocated. Bernie Sanders doesn't live the lifestyle he advocates. What is it? What's her name? AOC is in a, $5,600 apartment a month, and she blames the evil white people. That's your cope and seethe. You're in a private, one of those private apartments where they have doorman and Secret Service and all those other protections. But the politics of depression is dividing division amongst researchers because the research is politically motivated, just don't want to believe that cat ladies are insane. But journalists who quiz liberal girls pretty much come out of the conversation realizing this is a cognitive distortion, right? A cognitive distortion, right? That there's no helping these people get out of the trap, right? You can teach them not to catastrophize everything. And no, the cognitive disorder comes from the fact that they always blow everything out of disproportion, right? Trump is Hitler, right? The world is ending, the sky's going to fall. Students are saying that increasingly on campus, right, they're talking about you could be next. Every time there's a rape reported, they run around screaming you could be next. But they don't tell you who the rapists are. And it's often the same few people. But then when they point out the rapists, they go, oh, it's their culture, or they don't know better, or they just need sympathy and a hug, and they just needed a job, or they just needed counselling for their anger issues, or it's Whitey's fault. So there's a constant cognitive disconnect. So liberals and their institutional leaders teach young progressives to catastrophize everything as a way to get what they want. And because liberals, right, in the establishment give these protest groups what they want, it sets up a reward feedback loop where they get their little dopamine hit for every time they catastrophize. They get their little likes on the Twitter bots go through Twitter, clicking like on certain influencers, making them appear more popular than they are. But the passage from sane to insane is a long road, right? And not everybody is insane. There's quite a difference between insane and unhinged, right? Most of them, you see their crazy eyes, they're unhinged. But 60 years of research has proven, without a doubt, conservatives are happier and achieve more. We're more productive. What a shock. Men are more productive. What a shock. But it's clear, right? Mental health issues, particularly during early puberty, arise from the root causes of activism in the schools, right? You got to take politics out of schools. You got to take identity politics out of schools. I don't care if America becomes a white country. Why not? Why shouldn't it? What's wrong with a white country? You should be asking the most fundamental basic questions. Why? 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 Prove it, prove it, prove it, right? Ask them why, ask them for proof, right? See, the more you get liberals to, every time you let liberals dominate the argument, they'll just confound you, right? Confound, they'll just bombard you with all their crazy paranoia, right? You never let them get beyond, but Trump, right? Now, like, Facebook is full of fucking morons who come into right-wing groups to troll you, saying, guess who's not in the Epstein list? That's a lie. Most of the time, they're just lying, right? But one of the biggest disorders liberals have is multiple identities, right? Where you have liberal women who can't decide if they're a lesbian, a journalist, an activist, polyamorous, a furry, there's just, because they've got everything, right? Oh, I'm trans supportive. Okay, data trans. No, I'm not that trans supportive. As soon as you ask the most basic questions, right? You're so trans supportive, why don't you date a trans man or a trans woman, right? So you focus on that divides liberals. Facts, right? They have multiple personalities, right? Where they divide things, they base things on age groups. So you get young liberals only wanting to have. You go to young liberals. Why don't you want to date boomers? What's wrong with boomers? But they give you liberalism and progressive politics, or gender identity. So, you only date women. So do I. I identify as a woman. You literally use their politics against them, because remember, they are psychotic or sociopathic, right? They adapt their personality, right, to the person they're talking with, right? So they're only kind when they're talking with progressive. So this is where you use their tactics against them. Well, so you've got ageism, sexism, gender identity politics, racial, I identify as a black man. I identify as having a foot-long subway. What else is there? Yeah, race, ethnicity. No, I'm not from Southern. I identify. I'm not Puerto Rican. I'm Mexican. Just keep changing the narratives on them, all right? And of course, the one is sexual attractiveness. You're body shaming me, right? You think my pee-pee's too small? You're body shaming me? Really? You fat cow? You flat-chested modern? Who do you think you are? You should be grateful they even talk to you. You bully them down in the same tactics they use against you. You judge them by the standards they use. And of course, Gen Z, though most are not liberals, right? Gen Z is well split, right? Only 30-something%. They're the least liberal of all generations, right? Where boomers are the majority of boomers are conservative Democrats, right? So you look at them, right? Gen Z are the most conservative, the least liberal, but there's also a lot of in between, right? And these the ones in between, right, who are going to change everything. because they're now the swing voters. They're now the political power bloc. And they want the culture that they were promised, not the culture that has occurred, right? They hear all the promises of feminism, and yet they say, wait a minute, you promised this in the 60s. Why hasn't it happened yet? And then they hear all the excuses. But you're rich. We're not. That doesn't make sense. We're poor, but you're rich, right? So you got rich. We didn't. But that's somehow Whitey's fault. But you're white. You're a white woman. But you're a man, you have to give up all your wealth for the people of colour. And they start, this is where their multiple personalities kick in. And then you go, aha, so wealth is only for you and you're making excuses. And then they have to get defensive again. Keep them defensive, right? But there is a 11-year running epidemic of adolescent mental illness, the highest recorded in the world. Right? Anxiety and depression increased since 2012, right? Mental health in liberal girls sank first and the fastest. And it is political. It is the overloading of politics. It's the constant showing you things you cannot afford and never, right? Most of us never in a year would afford a Ferrari. That doesn't mean we all want one. But we all know they're overpriced. We all know that there's luxury goods that are overpriced. Yet women, they're not happy with their $300 or their... My Birkin cost me $3,000, but Oprah's cost hers $30,000. I want a $30,000 Birkin. Like, what the fuck? It's not even worth $30. Right? A man would be happy with a $15 fucking satchel. Backpack from some mountaineering backpack, with one strap. This is the problem with women. Status is a drug to them. And again, now if you value your voice, right, tell us below. What's your experience with the awful, right? Because they're making out that awful, right, was made up after the death of Rene Good. No, it was made up by liberals, right? Self-described liberals called themselves, they originally called themselves affluent. They called themselves white affluent female, right? Or urban liberals, right? This is where the anachronism started to develop way back in the 80s, 86, I think, right? But the media loves to scrub. The media loves to reinvent narratives, right? They always try to modernize everything, right? They try to act like everything's new. No, this early world's evil started under Trump. It's only white men. But get rid of all the white men. All the evils go away. All these narratives, right? But ultimately, right? Where does society go from here?
Right turn, Clyde.
Exactly. We take a right turn. Japan has taken a right turn. Korea has taken a right turn. Will you take the right turn? Will you return to normalcy? Right? This is not about, right? You think, right? If you told Africans they have to be, that you have to be a minority in Africa to be ruled by Indians and Chinese, they would freak you out. They would freak out, chimp out, right? So you've seen all the videos, right? But they're hypocrites. Liberals are hypocrites. But the thing is, because they cannot reconcile their beliefs, because they can't even keep up with their own beliefs, because they're constantly struggling to answer, right? Right? Because they're constantly sitting there envying, crying, right? Trying to come up with new performances to get those likes on and attention on YouTube. Oh, sorry, not on YouTube, on TikTok, right? And we all know the TikTok money's dried up, right? Remember when TikTok paid out billions of dollars? They're not anymore. They're like, same with YouTube. What, paid out barely over $1 billion or something? People, although there's different statistics out there, there's no way of knowing what's the truth anymore because the media lies, they propagandize, they hide the statistics. They say, I'm sorry, the statistics for 2023 aren't available yet. And it's like, what? Then there's excuse and saying, oh, well, corporate earnings take a while to report, you know. But there's a lot of videos out there saying that even if we got 10 million views, you're not going to make a living. 10 million views a year, and it's not a living, right? There are TV shows that get less than that. They get funded for millions. I kid you not. There are TV shows that get less views than me, and they're fully funded. So don't think for a minute we're in a capitalist or a free market society, right? But men's voices are speaking up, and I want to hear from men, right? What's your experience with liberal women? What's your, what's the dead giveaway? Is it the crazy eyes, the coloured hair, the wacky clothes? Like, some of them don't, right? There's always, not every liberal woman these days wears the, the t-shirt with the dungarees, or the bukkake glasses. A lot of them have stopped dyeing their hair because they're now afraid of cancer. Ironically enough, they tell you not to listen to RFK, yet they go out and secretly check their hair dye and wash it out and put in food colouring. So yeah, they tell you not to listen to RFK, yet they're listening to RFK about cancer in the dyes. So, makeup, right, is the next big tobacco lawsuit, right, over cancer, right? It's a lot of liberal women, a rise in makeup, a rise in nicer clothing, low-cut dresses. So, yeah, the closer we get to World War III, the more feminine liberal women become, because they're getting ready to... they're not getting ready to be married. They're getting ready to dole up, marry soldiers, prostitute themselves, and collect that war widow pension. So, don't be a chump, John. Otherwise, you're a dear John. So, please like, share, subscribe. Please support the channel. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, for $1 a month over at my RPG Patreon. Buy me books, buy me merch. All my links are in the link tree description below, in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen. I sincerely thank the 17 or so % of people who make it this far. Appreciate each and every one of you, though, and see you in the next video. Bye for now.